Alice in Wonderland is directed by Tim Burton, written by Linda Wolverton. It's based on the novels by Lewis Carroll, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, and it stars Mia Wasikowska, that's how you pronounce her name, I looked it up, Johnny Depp, Helena Bonham Carter, Anne Hathaway, and Crispin Glover. And in Alice in Wonderland, Alice Kingsley, played by Mia Wasikowska, tumbles down a rabbit hole and finds herself in a place called Underland, where the inhabitants tell her it is her destiny to slay the Jabberwocky and free the kingdom from the rule of the Red Queen, played by Helena Bonham Carter. Now, when Alice in Wonderland came out in theaters like 6 years ago, I remember watching it twice, once in 3D. I'm not really sure why, because I never really enjoyed this movie that much. Maybe it's because like the 3D trend was still new back then because of Avatar. But watching it again for this review, I'm actually more okay with the movie slightly. It's definitely a visual feast. There's a lot of really strong voice acting, but it's just so lacking in substance. Now, the visual effects in this movie are kind of a hit or miss in terms of believability. To an extent, you always know that you are on a green screen soundstage, but there's just so much imaginative, creative detail crammed into every single corner that it's always fun to watch. In particular, I actually really like how this version of Underland is like a corrupted version. So there's like whimsical things, but they're kind of torn down, so you can kind of tell just from the visuals alone what this place has been going through. And of course, the makeup work is fantastic. The costume design is great as well, especially on Alice. Her outfits get better and better as the movie goes on, and the makeup on the Mad Hatter is just suitably crazy and very dynamic. Actually, even outside Underland, the production design of like England, I believe, is really, really nice. And the cinematography from Dariusz Wolski, I believe, really gets the shine here. Now, there are quite a few live-action actors in this movie, but it's the voice actors who really impressed me here. I mean, they have really, really small roles, but they still manage to infuse their characters with just enough personality for them to be memorable. So you have like Michael Sheen as the White Rabbit, Alan Rickman, bless his soul, as Absalom, Barbara Windsor as the Dormouse. They're all great, but the standouts for me are Paul Whitehouse as the really crazy March Hare, and my favorite, Stephen Fry as the Cheshire Cat, who was always my favorite for some strange reason. And the Cheshire Cat, by the way, is also wonderfully animated. Now, the live-action actors aren't really bad per se. It's just that, you know, there was just something missing from their performances that really made them memorable for me. Like, Mia Wasikowska, like, she seems to be having difficulty acting like on just a pure green screen because she seemed kind of stoic throughout the movie. Helena Bonham Carter, Anne Hathaway, and Crispin Glover are fine, but you know, I just wanted more from them, and Helena Bonham Carter needed to do something more than just shout all the time. And Johnny Depp, who is objectively kind of good as the Mad Hatter, he's just wildly inconsistent with his character. Like, he just changes accents so many times throughout the movie, and I get that he's supposed to be crazy, but it doesn't seem like a character thing. It just seems like Johnny Depp couldn't decide on which accent to use. But Tim Burton definitely knows how to fill up a screen with lots of crazy imaginative detail, and his action in the movie is, to be fair, pretty well done and surprisingly violent for a movie that was kind of marketed as a kid's film. But Tim Burton's direction here doesn't really balance the darkness with the humor that well. I think that's because the darkness and the humor are coming from two separate places. You know, like if you look at the visuals, there's nothing funny about it. Instead, the humor comes from, you know, crazy dialogue and the Mad Hatter dancing. It's really jarring. But my biggest issue with Alice in Wonderland is the fact that the writing just isn't there. You know, like nothing makes sense in Underland, and I kind of understand that that's sort of how it's supposed to be, but I think they make it pretty clear in the movie that things are supposed to make sense in Underland. And anyway, it's not crazy enough or surreal enough to really make it work. Even more problematic are the characters, because the characters here are little more than just funny ways of talking and funny accents and repeated lines of dialogue. And Alice, who is supposed to be our hook into the movie, she doesn't really have like a very satisfying arc. She's supposed to learn a lesson from her adventure, but the lesson she learns is kind of weird, and I'm not even sure if it is a lesson. But I think Alice in Wonderland is an okay movie. Definitely don't watch it for the story, but watch it only if you're interested in the aesthetic quality. Alright, so those are my thoughts on Alice in Wonderland. Have you guys seen it? What do you think about it? Whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.